Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for allowing me to present at your webinar today. I'm excited to share some of the AC Transit lessons learned. Um, I'm just going to warn you kind of ahead of time. I've got more slides than minutes, so I'm going to zoom really high level through a bunch of them so that I can get to the stuff at the end, which is what really matters, and probably the stuff that we want to talk about the most. So, next slide, please. So a little bit about AC Transit and who we are, and we've been doing this for about 20 years. We've got a long history of fuel cell deployment. Um, I've been with AC Transit since the first station that we built on our own without the help of an outside partner. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're doing with some of our Lono grants. We've got two exciting projects actually in working right now from Lono awards. I'm going to talk a little bit about our workforce development at our Zeb University, which Sydney mentioned, and then some takeaways, which should be the bulk of our discussion. Next slide, please. Okay, just really quickly, we are the largest bus-only transit agency in California. We've got 619 buses, 58 of them are ZEBs. We did have more ZEBs than that, but we recently, because we've been doing this so long, recently had to retire part of our fleet, and those are now in operation down in Central America. So, we have 7 board members, and we have a rider profile that is very transit dependent. Next slide, please. Okay, like I said, we've been doing this for over 20 years. We've logged over 8 million zero emission bus miles, which is a whole bunch of CO2 elimination. Next slide, please. I'm going to kind of go through these really quick. This is a really exciting study. We did a 5x5 study, which we then had validated by Stanford University's Precourt Institute of Energy. And it told us everything we need to know about deploying zero emission buses in our operating environment. We took 5 buses of 5 different technologies. We ran them on the same routes, on the same weather and the same ambient conditions, same operators, and it gave us operating metrics that we then could apply to our existing service criteria. The goal here was not to prove fuel cell over battery. The goal here was to understand the operating metrics and apply the right technology to the right routes. And the result of this is that it totally flipped our planned mix. We were originally 70% battery. Now we're going to be 70% fuel cell. So there had a huge impact. This study is available on our website for anybody that would like to see it. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on talking about the facilities that we have right now. You're just going to have to trust me in that we've done this before and we have a pretty good track record. Next slide, please. Okay, this is just a little bit more about our facilities and some pictures and what we've done. I would like to mention that we have had a 98% uptime on our hydrogen stations in this latest iteration. So we're starting to zero in on being effective with our fleet and our service operations. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about our Zeb University, which is our workforce development piece. This is actually being funded by a Lono grant. We are converting our existing training center into a university-style learning center. And so you see some before and after pictures here. But I think what's really important with this is I want you to understand that, one, we're engaging a mixed reality learning criteria, which means that we're going to be using visual uh, reality, artificial reality, and artificial intelligence to drive our training program. Um, it's going to be really exciting. We're actually using it right now. You can see that we're going to transition our entire facility to a university style campus. Um, but another thing that's really cool here is that we're building a capability that's not just for AC Transit. We're building a capability here that we have partnered with the local junior colleges, and we are actually uh, have a program where we're teaching junior college students maintenance, fuel cell bus maintenance capabilities, reaching out to the next generation to pull them into our workforce. We're also going to make this training available to some of our partner agencies, such that some agencies are smaller, can't afford this level of training. So we want to try to spread the wealth a little bit. Next slide, please. So this is just some more pictures. Next slide, please. Okay, so our basic workforce training program is 198 hours for the basic mechanic development that passes through 5 different classes, so at the end of these classes is when we feel like we're able then to deploy our staff mechanics out into the workforce and to work as into the zero emission fleet. Um, it deals with both safety of working in high voltage and fuel cell environments, all the basic diagnostics, advanced diagnostics, and in all, we have 19 different courses that comprise these hours of class. Next slide, please. Okay, this is just a couple of pictures on what it looks like. You can see the student here is wearing visual goggles and is able to, it's kind of like that commercial on TV where the heart surgeon does surgery 100 times virtually before he actually does it on a heart. So with this, they can pull a piece out, they can turn it around, they can see where that screw is, all kinds of really cool stuff. Next slide, please. And this is just a little remote learning that we would use with remote students. Next slide, please. Okay, now we're getting down to the stuff we wanted to talk about. Um, so I'm going to share with you some of the things that worked well for us and some of the things that we've done over time. These worked well for us. They may not necessarily work for you. They may not hit your priorities, but these are the things that we found to be successful. First, we need to know our routes. We need to know where we're going to deploy these and why. Second, we need to take a holistic view at our facilities, and that includes not just your fueling, but also your maintenance facilities, your paint booths, all your station locations. Um, we have built scaled to growth, although that's only because doing it all at once can be challenging. Um, but we are building stations with 120 and 130 bus capacity right now. So um, that might actually be terminal growth at our existing facilities. Bold letters, invest in workforce training. You heard Nicholas say this, you heard Sydney say this, now you're going to hear me say this. If you doesn't do any good to go buy buses and to have a station built if you don't know how to maintain it and operate it. There is an obligation with your emergency responders, which is a bit of a separate subject. Technology partners, you're going to hear me say this a couple of times. Pick your partners wisely. You will be as successful as your partners make you. We've had a 98% uptime guarantee, uptime number. We have been highly successful in fuel cell deployments. That's not because I'm smart. It's because we have picked the right partners that have made us successful. Um, Next slide, please. Okay, so here are some of the drop downs around this. At AC Transit, we make sure that we do these projects at an enterprise implementation plan level. What that means is that everybody's engaged with the process. You want your one of the things that we do is don't go buy buses and then see how we're to run them and see how it works. We follow our bus replacement plan. We're replacing diesel buses with fuel cell buses, and we are driven to have our infrastructure available before the buses arrive. Bit of a chicken or egg issue, right? Do you need the buses before you need the fueling facility, or do you need the fueling facility before you need the buses? It takes about 2 years to build infrastructure. So at the point that we order the buses, we start the infrastructure build. And that's my job, is to make sure the infrastructure is available when the buses show up. Again, pick your partners wisely. We use a design bid build uh, format, which is a little different than a lot of people. A lot of people want to use the design build. Um, the reason we use design bid build is because we want more control of the project. We don't want to delegate control to a design build contractor. We want long-term relationships with both the design team and the equipment manufacturer. Provides us performance guarantees with a direct link to the people that are maintaining it. And in our construction, we actually separate out the hydrogen systems from the balance of plant, the concrete, the fencing, the canopies, all that kind of stuff, because that gives us the opportunity to provide a bit of a project and some of the work to local small business contractors, which is something that is a really good thing to be doing. Operational considerations, again, develop the workforce, know where and why you're going to deploy these. And then, of course, you need to maintain these things. So your operations and maintenance program is incredibly important to get uptime guarantees, regular operations and maintenance standards, and routine preventative maintenance. Um, and on top of the routine preventative maintenance, you need to plan for corrective maintenance. And what that means is we know what the preventative maintenance is going to be. We can put a dollar amount on that and we can budget it. Corrective maintenance, you don't know what's going to break or when it's going to break, so you don't know how to budget that. So we do that with an allowance. So we will do an O&M contract that provides for operations and preventative maintenance, and then we'll have an allowance in that contract for corrective maintenance that we authorize as the need arises. Next slide, please. Okay, now going down to the bottom, um, we want to be prepared when the buses arrive. You'd be surprised how many agencies give me a call and say, "Hey, we just got 10 buses and we need to figure out how to fuel them. Can you give us any advice?" And my advice would have been to have called me 2 years ago. Let's make sure that you're prepared when the buses arrive, that you have both maintenance and fueling facilities ready. Um, and and now I want to touch on really quick the fugitive emissions, which we boil off gas, which we call BOG. Go ahead and give me the next slide, please. Okay, so BOG is almost a political issue these days. It's a very hot issue. You need to know basically what your losses are and how much of a loss you're willing to tolerate before you spend a boatload of money on it. I've talked to agencies that think that they're having 40 and even 50% boil off gas losses. Our calculated losses are between 10 and 12%, which is almost tolerable. Um, but the more we can reduce that, the better off we're going to be. Um, the way we calculate boil off loss is I take the number of molecules that I actually buy and pay for, and the number of molecules I actually get into the buses. And the difference between those is what I've lost somewhere in the process. Okay, so I would suggest that you don't believe anyone if they tell you that they can eliminate all of your bog because that just can't be done. Um, but there are five basic places where you're going to have bog issues. One is in the transportation, which is in your fuel vendor transporting over the road. So if they're going to weigh their truck and measure their gas when they leave their facility, all of that may not get to you because of the transportation losses. So we have our supplier weigh within 5 miles of our plant so that we can know how much we're actually getting delivered. So the way in and the way off is immediately adjacent to our plant. The second place is in transfer to the bulk storage. There's some really exciting stuff going on with some transfer pumps that equalize the pressure. So I think there's some things that are happening that are going to make that a relatively minor loss issue. The third place is actually in your bulk storage. Over time, you're going to have some of your product is going to vaporize within your bulk storage plant tank, and when that happens, you have to evacuate that to make room for your new liquid. So you want to either capture that. We did look at reliquefying that, but the business case on that was really kind of hard because the cost of the energy to run that type of facility was actually ended up costing more at our PG&E rate than the actual hydrogen we were saving. So it didn't have a reasonable business case for us. Um, the other places at your pump, if what we've seen is some stations that have booster pumps because they have maybe 3 cylinders in their cryo pump and they have to build the pressure into their cryo pump. Well, you're going to have some blow by on the seals. We haven't had any blow by and because we're not using uh, any booster pumps into a 2-cylinder liquid pump. So, but I have heard a lot of people say they have seal blow by. And then the last is at your dispensers. When you actually dispense it into the bus, we use a communicated fill that the bus and the dispensers are constantly communicating with regard to pressure, temperature, and things like that to manage the fills so that we don't risk the loss of any hydrogen during the fueling process. And also, I want to say, don't confuse any settling or consolidation that you might get in your buses from heat after the fill with bog losses. If you fill to, you know, 350 bar and you end up being at a 70% state of charge the next morning when you go out on routes, that's probably because your hydrogen has consolidated and cooled down as because it heated up during the filling process. So we try to maintain that cooler pressure in our filling process, and we have most of our buses leave the facility in the morning with about a 98% state of charge. Um, Again, know your business case when you're considering bog. Consider all the costs, and that's the cost of operations and O&M of any equipment you're using to mitigate your bog. We have chosen, quite frankly, on ours to capture the bog rather than try to consolidate it. We've got some really exciting ways we're going to use that, which would be another whole nother 30-minute webinar. So I won't go there right now. And then the last thing is seek performance guarantees on all of these contracts. Know, what their obligation is to you. Next slide, please. Okay, I hope I didn't exceed my 10 minutes. Um, we will take questions at the end, but if you should have questions even after the webinar, we are always very willing and gracious to share anything that we know with you, your design team, your implementation team. We're very much a share the knowledge type of organization. So please feel free to reach out to me directly if you would like to have a further discussion. Thank you so much for your time.